Hello and welcome back to the one and only Starcastic Remarks. Alongside James, my name is Ryan Chambers. We are the official Dallas Stars podcast of THPN. That's the Hockey Podcast Network, for those of you that didn't know that. James, how's it going today? You doing okay?
It's going good. I couldn't hop on the pod last night because I was closing at a pizza store. So,
Pizza store, you say?
pizza store.
Really? Interesting. Well, anyways, we have got a jam-packed show for you guys here this evening, mostly because James was not able to do it last night just because we were doing a little bit of a special since it was the day of free agency. That's why we did it yesterday. But we are going to get into a little bit of some of the opinions from James, just since he didn't get the chance to kind of give his opinion on all that stuff. But today we did have the Glen Gulutzan introductory press conference, which we're going to talk about. I think everyone feels a lot better about that, about Glen Gulutzan as the head coach now compared to 24 hours ago. And then we're going to actually get into more general free agency stuff. And James is really good about this sort of thing too, looking around the NHL and stuff like that, as am I. And he says, no, he's not, but he is. And we're going to kind of look at some of the teams and look at some of the bigger moves that were made on not just July 1st, but also June 30th, because there was a lot on June 30th, the day before. And we'll kind of look into what teams got better, what teams got worse, what teams literally did nothing, and what teams kind of did meh. So all of that coming up on this episode. But James, first off, I don't even think we've gotten your opinion on the Glen Gulutzan hire. What do you so his era of hockey was way before your time, like way before you even remember. And he was the head coach 2011, 2012, 2013, those 2 seasons. From an outside perspective, what did you know about him, if that makes any sense? Like what was the general knowledge about what you saw on Twitter or what others were saying about Glen Gulutzan? And then before the press conference, and we'll get into that here in a second, how did you feel about this hire?
So the main thing that I knew about him was literally he was an Edmonton assistant coach. That's what I knew. That was my base knowledge. Around Twitter, you could kind of tell people were kind of not super high off of him. There wasn't very many options in the first place, honestly. And I'm under the impression that this hockey team's so good that there are very few people who you could hire that would just absolutely ruin the team. I mean, it'd be very hard to come into this team that has been this stacked and has made the conference finals 3 years straight and have a just terrible season. That's going to be hard to do. So along that front, I'm kind of like, whatever. They have a coach now, right? So it doesn't matter too much who it was to me. It's nice that Neil Graham did get an assistant coach position. So I know a lot of people were looking at him for the head coach. I know you and Chris talked about it a little bit yesterday as well. How Chris saying like, I'd rather have the person who you don't know is what going to do yet, basically, rather than having the experience. I also see where you were coming from with that, though, where like he's been around the league now. Most of the time he has been an assistant coach now and not a head coach. And now he's finally getting back to being a head coach. So we'll see how it works out.
So and we're fixing to talk about the press conference here in a second, but once you learned more information about Glen Gulutzan before the press conference, did it change your opinion on anything? Because it sounded like the only thing you knew about him was that he was an assistant in Edmonton.
Yeah, it didn't really change my mind that much, honestly.
That's okay.
Well, like I said, I mean, it's a coach. This team's very good. It's a bunch of players who he has never coached before. It's going to be different, and that's basically what we expected.
And the thing about this that a lot of people are saying is that, like, this is I mean, obviously, this is the Dallas Stars, duh. But this is not the same Dallas Stars. Like, it is nowhere even close. The only player that is the same is Jamie Benn. That is literally it. And Jamie Benn was like in the infancy of his career. That's how long ago it was. And like Brad Richards, who was a huge player for the Stars back in the day before he went and got his cup in Chicago. And after he got his cup in Tampa Bay, he had just left. He was like the big free agent that offseason for a lot of teams. And so it was not a good situation that Glen Gulutzan was coming into. Okay. You mentioned Neil Graham being the assistant coach. Do you think do you like the fact that he's the assistant coach at the very least, that he's with us?
Yes, especially
That was
especially since we have Chris down in Austin following the Texas Stars very closely, and he was very high on Neil Graham to the point where he wanted him to be head coach. I mean, that was his forerunner, and that's awesome that we have him as an assistant coach even now, because he could have gone anywhere else.
And he's going to be the power play coach. That was confirmed in the press conference. Elaine Nazardine is going to continue doing what he does, which I was very excited to hear. I'm very happy that, like, honestly, I think that's the most underrated thing about all of this is that, and I'll get your opinion on. I don't know if you heard how I explained the coaching staff and why I was excited, but just for those who haven't heard the other episode, I'll do it very briefly. I was very excited yesterday because the three main coaches that you have are all different. They're all different. And I mean, you've got Glen Gulutzan, who has some familiarity with the organization from years ago, over a decade ago. He's been around the block now. He's got a lot of good experience being an assistant and being a head, and especially being an assistant lately. Then you've got the shiny new toy on the block with Neil Graham, who comes in with all the fresh set of ideas, brand new eyes. He also has some familiarity with some of the younger players, especially, which helps a ton, an absolute ton. And then you've got Elaine Nazardine, who is more, he has more knowledge on these players than either one of the other two guys does, which is, again, very, it's cool. And he's kind of the guy that has had more recent NHL head coaching experience. So it's just really interesting to me that all three of these guys have connections to the Stars. They're all at different points in their coaching career as it comes to the NHL. Elaine Nazardine has been there, done that. Glen Gulutzan, I would say, is like in the prime of his coaching career. I think a lot of people would probably agree with me when I say that, because now he's got the job. And then you got the shiny new toy with Neil Graham. I love that. I think that is a very, very cool, different way to approach a coaching staff. What do you think about all that? Does that make you more excited?
Does it make me more excited? Not necessarily, but it is intriguing. I mean,
dang it. I tried.
It's very cool dichotomy you're gonna have going on, especially since they're all kind of from different eras of hockey as well. So there's gonna be different it's gonna be one of those situations where, like, you're gonna be shocked when two of them have the same idea. And from the press conference, it sounds like that's gonna be a good thing.
Good segue, James. Let's talk about the press conference here. We both watched it. We both listened to it. It was on at 11 a.m. Today, aka the time of this recording is July 2nd. And it went about 35 minutes. I was not able to make it to the press conference today. I was really upset about that. I really wanted to be able to make it. But what was your gut reaction after watching Gulutzan's press conference?
I liked a lot of the things he said. I mean, specifically, like I just mentioned, him talking about his experience as an assistant coach and how the head coaches he worked under really let him have a lot of creative liberty and flowing and move from thing to thing, and how he's talking about being able to use that now and letting his head coaches also be like that and all help each other and all coming up with different ideas and trying to figure out which one is the best one, and not just, okay, this is the one that I think is the best. We're going with that one.
Honestly, my initial gut reaction, and I mean, you should do this as the new head coach. And I love the way that Leah Asimakopoulos of Dallas Morning News put it. like he won the press conference, right? You know how we talk about like, oh, well, the presidential debate, who won the debate, even though there's not like a true real winner or whatever. But he won that press conference. He absolutely did. Everything he said was nearly spot on with what we kind of wanted. And we're going to hit some of those highlights here in a second. But like I was very excited after doing a little bit more digging and looking at the coaching staff and kind of, meditating on it a little bit. And then it even solidified it even more listening to him talk. Like this is and for those of you that didn't know Glen Gulutzan back in the day, I was only a teenager when he was the head coach of the Stars, and it was just after I was getting out of high school. This is a very different sounding Glen Gulutzan than the one 12 years ago. Like extremely different. The way he talked was much more confident, and a couple of key words that I heard a lot. The one that I really liked was collaborative, or versions of that word, if that makes sense. Like collaboration. Like this is not going to be this is going to be a very different coaching style and coaching staff than what we saw with Pete DeBoer. And that's not a knock on Pete DeBoer, but Pete DeBoer had a lot of experience, and it was kind of like him at the top, and then him telling all the others what to do, right? That was the feeling that you got. Yeah. Yes, that's what it felt like. And I would assume that's kind of the way that it went. But this feels a lot different. This feels like Glen Gulutzan is going to come here and he's just going to make the tough decisions, right? He's going to give the other coaches free liberty with how they want to do their thing. And we're going to talk about a couple of different things that he said, well, maybe there is this one thing I do want to change. And I loved it when he said that particular one. But before that, I want to ask you this question because Tim Kalishaw, I don't know if you saw the little Twitter feud between Sean Shapiro and Tim Kalishaw. Oh, it was hilarious. I love Sean for this. Tim Kalishaw basically came out and said, "Oh, well, this is just a retread. This is just a coach that has been there, done that, and they're just recycling a coach." And Sean was like, basically calling him an idiot without calling him an idiot. It was awesome. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go on X and go look it up. But it made me think of this question. Does it feel like the right hire right now, or is this just the safe hire for Jim Nill? What do you think? I think that's a really intriguing question.
I think the answer is yes. I mean, it's definitely a safe hire, but also, I mean, this really could be the one that works out like majorly in the Stars' favor.
And the other thing about this too, and I agree with him still from when he said this 4 weeks ago, I think Gulutzan at the helm will do better than Pete DeBoer would have done this year going into next season. I truly believe that. Now, what we don't want to see, obviously, and what a lot of Stars fans are talking about is a step back. And that was another key overshadowing moment of the whole press conference, is that neither one of these guys sounded like that they were talking about taking a step back. And I mean, you're not going to expect them to come out and say that anyways, but like it was very nice, and they weren't it didn't sound like they were just saying it to save face. Like they honestly both believe that this team still is in the 7 to 8 teams that Glen Gulutzan mentioned that have had the chance to win the Stanley Cup next year. And I still believe that. It's going to look a little different. The depth took a little bit of a hit, obviously, because of the cap and because of Mikko Rantanen coming here. But that's what you have to live with when you go out and get a superstar player like that. And I think the Stars needed it. Jim Nill pulled the trigger. I still think it's the right hire. In terms of him being the right hire, I think he is the right hire. And is it a safe hire? I don't think so, to be honest with you, because the safe hire would have been going out and just getting another retread coach. And I know some people will say, oh, well, he's been a head coach before and he's been an assistant for a long time and stuff like that. But this is not the same retread when we talk about the same coaches like Peter Laviolette, and no offense to Pete DeBoer, but Pete DeBoer is in that conversation. and Lindy Ruff and there's a lot of coaches that had just been to like 6 or 7 different teams. Or Dean Evison, there's another one that came off the top of my head. He's not in that same group. He is in a elite category of NHL assistant coaches that probably deserved a chance at a roster. So the other thing about this is I don't think this is a safe hire because this team is not in a safe position. This team is in a win now mode, at least based off of the way they both talked about it. And their expectation is to compete for the Stanley Cup. That's why I don't think it's a safe hire, because they could have easily just gone out and, okay, well, go get Peter Levy. He's still out there. Peter Laviolette is still out there, as is Gerard Gallant. I don't know what the situation is, personally with either one of those guys, but there's still coaches out there that are quote unquote better, have more experience, more winning than Glen Gulutzan. And Glen Gulutzan is not a safe hire, because if you look at his head coaching experience in the 4 years that he was a head coach, which was a while ago now, it's not good, right? So I don't tend to believe that this is a safe hire. That's just my personal opinion. So, okay, I want to talk about a couple of different things within the press conference that I saw. And Jim Nill specifically emphasized 2 words at the very beginning. He talked about character and scars. And what he meant by scars is, I always say on this podcast, you kind of have to learn to win or learn to lose before you can win. And that's kind of the same idea that the scars Jim Nill was talking about. He was just like, he's lost the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row as an assistant now. Like he's had the scars now, and he's understood how to lose. And now he's saying, inferring that he's ready to win now. Do you buy that as a good coaching trait, though, James? Or is that just the general manager speak?
I think that's a trait that all coaches end up with just through experience. So it's more of a tale of a experienced coach, that's for sure.
Okay. And then one other thing that Gulutzan mentioned, and this kind of goes into the most exciting thing that I think, is he mentioned 1 degree improvements. And what he was specifically mentioning there was talking about the physicality. He was just like, each game, starting with game 1, you start at, I don't know, like 20% physicality. And if you start at 20% physicality, game 2, you should be at 21. And then game 3, you should be at 20, so on and so forth. And it, like, bringing up the physicality as you get ready for the playoffs. And that was one thing that we talked about. You can't just turn a key on and expect to play well in the playoffs, losing 7 games in a row at the end of the regular season. So, what do you think that means, just in practical terms of for the team? Like what does that mean? Does it literally mean that they're just going to ramp up over the course of the regular season?
Well, it's going to mean that they're not going to be the least hitting team in the entire league. Is what that means, really, because like we've seen it this entire time. And the Stars under Pete DeBoer did not hit ever. That was kind of their goal, I guess. Almost it was not hit and make the other team scared of you a bit. It was get the puck, hunt the puck, make good plays on the opponents, pick off passes. That's how really they got a lot of their turnovers. And when you hit defensemen like the Oilers did against the Stars, they start making little mistakes, and little mistakes are a lot easier to capitalize than trying, or they give you more chances than if you're trying to pick off a pass or something, or make a good play, or just strip them of the puck. It's a lot harder to do that than the other player just makes a mistake. I don't know if that was a good way of putting that or not.
No, that makes sense. I think basically what another way you can put it is you just finish your check when you have the opportunity to do so, right? So like again, this is how the Florida Panthers play. That's in the Stanley Cup final. They did it to Edmonton. And the crazy thing is that Edmonton did it to us in the Western Conference final. They just slowly wear you down whether it's in a game or throughout the series. We saw that. Like in game 5, the Stars had nothing, had absolutely nothing. They were completely worn out. And it was the same thing for the Oilers in game 6. Like they just had nothing left because the Florida Panthers, it wasn't that like there was like this constant thundering hits of, Scott Stevens variety or Jamie Benn variety. There's nothing like that. It was just a slow, steady trickle of just finishing your checks, finishing your hits, and making sure that you're wearing the other team down. I think that's kind of what Glen Gulutzan is kind of getting to. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people latched onto. They're just like, we are extremely, extremely excited about the physicality that we could see from this team. Because even though we have lost a lot of that identity, unfortunately, with Mason Marchment being gone, and I would put Stankoven into that same category as well. Even though we've lost those physical guys, like the guys that would go in and finish their checks and stuff like that, you still have a lot of guys on this team that can go in and finish their checks like they should. Like Robertson is a perfect example of that. I mean, we talked about like his first couple of years where he was just fully relying upon skill. Like he was a great player, but he was fully relying upon skill. And then in the playoffs, like a couple of years ago, he started showing the physicality aspect of his game. And then we didn't really see it very much. I would probably bet because of the coaching style that Pete DeBoer was wanting them to do. And it was very, very nice to hear a coach come in and say, this is and he didn't say anything else that he wanted to do like immediately. He had some things that he's like, I'm not going to tell you that he wanted to change. But he did say from day one, physicality is going to be there, and we're going to ramp it up by game 82 so that we're ready for the playoffs.
Yeah. And the specific thing about it is he talked about it's not just like you get one player and one player just goes out and makes all the big hits. He's talking about everyone, and that's going to be a large part of it, because especially like you said, losing Mason Marchment, that is one of our most physical players. Absolutely, yes. But there are so many other players on this team that can hit and just haven't the past 3 years, because that's just not the way they were told to play.
And it goes to show you exactly how they want to play when you look at what they did in free agency, the Stars. Like they didn't do very much, right? Next to nothing. Okay. Because they didn't have to. And they also couldn't, just because of the lack of cap space, right? Or negative cap space, or a negative cap space at this point, actually. But when a lot of people were talking about, James, and I'll get your opinion on this, is when you go out and you sign Radek Faksa for $2 million, that's about market value for Radek Faksa. I think that's a decent contract for a guy who can play in your bottom 6. But a lot of people were looking at, well, why are we giving $2 million to Radek Faksa when Evgeny Dodonov just signed a $1 million contract? With bonuses, yes, with bonuses, but it's a lower cap hit this year than Radek Faksa's. And I think that physicality, thing they were talking about in the press conference goes directly into why Radek Faksa was brought back instead of Evgeny Dodonov. And it's because that's exactly what Radek Faksa does. Like he is a deceptively huge, large human being. He is very large. I think he's 6'3" at least. I think he's actually 6'4". He's like 220 pounds.
He's marked as 6'3", 215.
Okay, so I was close. I knew it was somewhere around there. Like, and that's exactly the type of guy that you need. And again, Radek Faksa can do all of that stuff. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, well, our faceoff percentage, got worse last season." Yeah, who really cares about that? It doesn't really matter. I mean, look at the Florida Panthers. Their faceoff percentage sucks, and they still won. So that's not why he's coming back to Dallas. The reason why he's coming back to Dallas is because he does all of those things and more. The physicality aspect more than anything. So that's what made me more excited about Glen Gulutzan in the press conference, was the physicality aspect.
Yeah, and that really is going to be, I think, a big change, especially for Stars fans watching the game. over the last 3 seasons in which we've had Pete DeBoer, the Stars are the second least hitting team in the entire league.
And we hate that.
I mean, what's crazy is not only are the Stars the second least hitting team, across that same span, they have the most points among any regular season teams. So among the regular season, they have the most points and the second least hits. And what's funny is the Carolina Hurricanes are the least hitting among those 3 seasons, or altogether, least hitting. And they're also up there. And what do both of those teams have problems with?
Winning in the Western Conference.
Winning in the conference final. Exactly. That is such a weird thing going on. But I mean, maybe there's merit behind it, you know?
And what's funny is that the Carolina Hurricanes are staying course with the way that they've been doing things. I mean, obviously they've still got Rod Brindamore at the helm, and Dallas made a very calculated move, and a move that maybe some people saw coming in firing Pete DeBoer. I definitely saw it coming. But it was kind of 50-50 whether it was actually going to happen. And they pulled the trigger on it. And you know what? The hats off to Jim Nell for doing that again. Okay. More things about the press conference that I wanted to talk about. And he said he doesn't have just one system now. And that was one thing that came out of the press conference, is that he felt really bad because early in his career, when he was the head coach here in Dallas, he was trying to put Jamie and others into like X's and O's. He said he was very calculated about, you pass this, you pass here, you pass across, he shoots, it's a goal, yay, we win. Okay. He says he doesn't really do that way anymore. He doesn't have one way to coach. And he's again, I'll say this, he's going to collaborate with the staff. And what I wanted to ask you, James, is how important is it that he kind of adapts to this roster rather than, forcing a style on this team? Because that was another thing he said, is he's going to look at the team, he's going to look at their strengths, and he's going to figure out a style that doesn't match the style that he wants to do, but a style that works for the Dallas Stars. Are you concerned about that? Do you think that's smart, or do you think that that's not the way to do it?
I think that's the most exciting thing about what he said the entire press conference, was trying to adapt a strategy to the Dallas Stars, not trying to copy what Cup winners have done the past couple of years, because those Cup winners had different players on their team. And the Stars have a great team right now, and it's obvious. I mean, their success in the regular season has been noted, but it just hasn't worked when it comes to trying to get 4 wins against the best teams in the league. And I think a lot of that is because these teams are getting put into their own little boxes where every coach has their own style, yes. And it takes whatever team so far, and typically you talk about trying to find the right coach to fit the right team. And it sounds like his approach is, I'm going to find the right coaching style for this team, which is something that just coaches don't normally do. Everyone has a thing that they like to go for. And it sounds like he's not going to do that. He's going to figure it out as this team plays. And I think that's really exciting.
That's another exciting thing, and why I think he won the press conference. He's very malleable with what he's going to do. And again, with the whole collaborative thing, Elaine Nasruddin knows these players better than both of the other 2 coaches. So if Glen Gulutzan tries to suggest something that doesn't work to a player's strength or whatever, then that's going to be said in their meetings and stuff like that. And it's not like all 4 lines are going to play the exact same way. I mean, is it okay to have, like, quote unquote 2 scoring lines, right? And then 2 lines in your bottom 6 that go after, and all their goal is just not necessarily to score. Obviously you want to score, but like spend time in the offensive zone, don't allow, and focus on the defensive aspect of your game, and don't play stupid, right? So maybe you've got different strategies for all 4 lines, or maybe you've got different strategies for your 2 power play units. Maybe you've got a crazy top heavy power play unit that's like what we see with McKinnon and McCarr, or what we see with Draisaitl and McDavid, where it's just ridiculous how they can do stuff. And then on your second unit, you've still got good players on that unit, but maybe they're not as creative as your top heavy unit or whatever, if that makes any sense. And then plus on top of that, that makes it harder for the other team to kind of defend against you if you're the other team's PK. Because if you're looking at the top unit playing one way and then the second unit comes out and they play a different way, then you've got to change the way that you're doing it, right? Does all of that kind of make sense? That's why I'm very excited about that particular thing, because it's forcing other teams to make adjustments to you, and on if it's for every single line and on the power play and on the penalty kill, then there's just so many different factors that kind of go into that. So that's why I'm very, very excited about all of that aspect. So, okay, I did not plan on going this long on the press conference, but there was a lot of good stuff in it. Let me ask one more question from you, James, and we can get into the free agency stuff. Let's talk more about the physicality. I've got like 6 or 7 other questions I wanted to ask you, but I'm talking too much. And it kind of goes into what I was talking about earlier with, you got players who can be physical, but can this team actually play more physically without any major roster changes?
I think they absolutely can. I mean, you think about like who even has been the physical presence on this team the last couple of years. And yes, there's Mason Marchment, but like even then, it's still not that much of a physical presence from him. Like it truly was a mindset for this team to really just try to get the puck more than anything. And it's been, you could say puck chasing, that might have a bad connotation to it, but that's really what they were doing. They were chasing the puck, and it worked for a long time, and it works really well in the regular season. And when it comes back to it, hitting is a part of the game of hockey for a reason, and it has been completely ignored on this team. It's like maxing out 2 other stats and your third stats level 1.
That's funny, because I've been on an Elder Scrolls Oblivion remastered kick for the last couple of weeks, and that's like literally having like your blade all the way up to 99 and your block all the way up to 99, but then like your magic level, your destruction level is at like 2 or something like that. Like that makes complete sense.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
It's dumb. It's completely useless. Okay. Well, let me ask you about this too, James. And do you expect this team to kind of take a step back next season? Do you expect a lower, maybe like a lower points total, or do you expect them to kind of still stay up in the top 2 of the Central Division? What do you think? Or does it even matter? Does it even matter, honestly?
I don't know if it's top 2, but it's top 3. I mean, I don't think there's any reason why this team should not be a top 3 team in this Central. Even with all the additions that the other teams in the Central have made, this team is too good to not be at least top 3. And it really doesn't matter as long as they finish up in those top 3. Truly. I mean, we've seen it happen multiple different times where Tampa or Florida has both been the 3rd seed in their division and then gone on to win the cup. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your record is at the end of the regular season. It matters what happens in the playoffs.
That's a very good point, and that's kind of what I was kind of hinting at too, is that when you look at Stanley Cup winners, very often they're not the best regular season team. Actually, it's more often that they're not when they win. I mean, that's the crazy thing. And so I think this is a step in the right direction with hiring Glen Gulutzan. I love the press conference and what he did. And that's what he should do. He should win the press conference. He makes me feel a lot better about myself, and he made Stars fans, in general, feel a lot better about his hiring as the next head coach. It's going to be very interesting and very exciting to see what he does with this team come September when training camp opens. So, okay. Speaking of training camps, we're going to see a lot of different players in a lot of different places. And what I'm getting into is NHL free agency. Me and Chris kind of talked about the Stars a little bit yesterday. We talked a lot about Foxa and a lot about Colin Blackwell and what the roster construction can kind of look like. But James, I want to get into you today a little bit more with what did everybody else do in the NHL? And I'll start you off with the biggest story of all of free agency, and the fact that Mitch Marner is now in the Western Conference. That sucks. I hate that. So we're going to see him about 3 to 4 times next season, and he signs an 8-year deal for $12 million with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then he's immediately traded to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for Nick Waugh. So what did you think about that signing? Are you surprised about it? How does he fit into Vegas? Does this make Vegas more scary, I guess is the right word I was looking for? What do you think?
Vegas always finds a way to get the best player, don't they? I mean, that's what they do. They always go and they figure out a way to get the best player on the market on their team, regardless of who they have to jettison out of the ship to fit them on. I think it makes sense. They especially with the news that came out. I forget his name, but do you remember
Alex Pietrangelo? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah. That he's not going to play. Basically, is the bottom line. It that'll help them a lot with filling that gap that he leaves. I think also a big part of this is like Mark Stone also is starting to show a lot of wear and tear on his body, and he's starting to have that points drop too. So that this kind of helps fill in for some of that as well. I think it makes sense. Yes, it's a very good player now that we have to play against, but we already have to play against some of the best players in the league on this side of the conference. So there's no difference in who you're playing against, honestly.
And the thing that a lot of people are comparing this signing to Mikko Rantanen, since we're making it about the Dallas Stars here. I mean, it's the exact same contract, right? 8 years, $12 million per. And honestly, Marner same age too. And Marner probably could have gotten more, honestly, if he had gone to market. It probably could have been 13 plus. So I don't know if this makes Vegas a completely better team. Obviously it does, because he was the best in the shiniest toy on the market. And it makes sense for them to bring him in because they just always get the best players and everything. But it's going to be interesting to see kind of how he fits into the lineup and what the Vegas Golden Knights kind of look like. Because and I'm not saying that Vegas is a bad team. I'm not saying that when I say this. But what I'm saying is that not everybody is as scared of the Vegas Golden Knights now like they were, say, 3-4 years ago, right? So that's the biggest thing about all of this is that I don't know where it moves that needle for me. And again, it's just recency bias because we haven't seen Mitch Marner play a game in a Vegas sweater, so we'll have to look and see. The other biggest, I guess it's not signing, but trio of signings is Florida's ridiculous, man. Like they basically keep everybody, right? So yeah. Ekblad, he returns and he gets a $6.1 million contract. I believe it's for 6 years. James, help me out.
I'm trying to find it.
I don't think it's 6 years. I think it's different actually. Then also Brad Marchand resigns and he gets about 5.5 for 6 years. So he's going to be playing till he's like 65 years old. And then they also signed their other big one way before that. And Sam Bennett, he gets 8x8. So 8 years for $8 million. I mean, are you surprised that they were able to keep all three? Because I think the general consensus around the NHL is there's no way that they were going to keep all three. They were talking, okay, they're going to keep two of the three. Which two of the three are they going to keep? And Bill Cito, who let's be honest, he probably should have won GM of the year this year. I think everyone agrees with that now. He does it again, and he shows why he's one of the better GMs in the league.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that they get to keep all of them. They have a lot of big numbers for a long time. That's going to look better as the cap rises more and more. This team could be really scary, but it's also there's a decent amount of older players, so they're going to be good for at least another 2-3 years. They're going to be really scary. But once you get past, you get to year 4, 5, 6, that's when you're going to see the team kind of get some hurt. I guess is a good way to put it. And of course that's dependent on what the GM does too. I mean, the GM can fix that by trading people away as well. But yeah, I mean, it's shocking that they get to keep everyone. Three-peat, you know.
I mean, you bring all the play. They even brought back Tommy Nosek. Like they're one of their bottom 6 guys. Like he's even returning to Florida. So like they not only did they get like, you know, the key guys of the roster, and like Brad Marchand almost won the MVP trophy because he was ridiculous. Like they bring back the bottom 6 guys too. They brought back everybody. And I would argue, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, is that the team we saw this year was better than the team we saw last year with the Florida Panthers. They were way more dominant. They were way more scary this year than they were last year. And that terrifies me.
Yeah, in the playoffs especially.
And to make this about the Dallas Stars, when the press conference we just talked about, the physicality aspect, if the Stars want to have a chance of beating the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup final, assuming they get there, what Glen Gulutzan said is exactly how I think is a way to do it. You ramp up the physicality throughout the regular season. That I love that he said that line. A couple of other key re-signings or whatever. We can talk about the Maple Leafs for a second. They are able to keep John Tavares on a really good deal, I would argue, for them. Like, this is a guy that scored 38 goals last year. A lot of people were like, oh, he's not worth, $5, $6, $7 million. And I'm like, he's older, yeah, but he still scored 38 goals this year. Like, that's ridiculous. And I think it's at 4.35 is the AAV for that contract. And then Matthew Nyes, also he gets his big extension, 6 years at $46.5 million over the course of that contract, which I think is about 7.5, 7.75, something like that.
7.75.
Yeah. So, I mean, they get some really good signings done. And what a lot of people are saying in Toronto is finally they're getting signings that are not $10 million plus. So what did you think of those two signings in particular?
Yeah, I think the Knives one is more important than the Tavares one, honestly. That's someone who's playing on your top line consistently, and he has a great physical presence. He's able to control the game very well. And having him for 6 years below 8 million AAV is pretty stellar in my opinion. I felt like he could have gotten a lot more.
What did you think? Was there any like terrible contracts that you saw that were handed out? Because there were two in particular that I was just like, really? That?
Like for all of free agency or Toronto specifically?
All of free agency. I'm just opening all of free agency.
Probably the Cody Ceci one in LA, 4.5.
Ardell's already saying it in the chat.
That one's a little nuts. He probably deserves it, honestly. He played really well on Dallas. Eye test wise, we saw it. I mean, he has problems within his game, but I mean, he still ate up a ton of minutes and he played decent, is what I would say. Decent. And when you're a right-handed defenseman and you play decent, you get paid.
Yes. And I think that's the key there, James, is he's right-handed. And I was very surprised that he got 4.5. Honestly, I was very surprised that he got, and especially for 4 years. I thought it was too much and for too much term. But at the same time, he's right-handed. So, let's stick with the LA Kings for a second, because
Oh
the
my
LA
word.
Kings,
They were a story.
yeah, that they were the busiest team at free agency. Like they made lots of changes and they brought in a bunch of players. And I think they brought in 5 on the first day, I believe.
Yeah.
And a lot of the contracts were a little eh. I mean, what do you think of their free agency, the LA Kings?
I mean, it's definitely interesting. It feels like their team is just full of misfits now, honestly. It feels like the Vegas Golden Knights in their inaugural season.
Just going for a bunch of guys that have been there, done that. A couple of there were 2 other contracts that I was a little iffy on that have been signed recently, and one of them was the Keandre Miller signing. I was, and it wasn't really a signing; it was a trade, and then he signed with the Carolina Hurricanes. I think he got what was it, 7.5, 7.75? It was 7.5. So he got an 8-year extension with for $60 million over the course of the contract. I'll be honest, I haven't seen him play very much other than the games that he's played against Dallas. But the 2 or 3 games that I did see, I was not super impressed with him completely. And it almost seems like the stock on him was a lot higher a couple of years ago, and that's kind of fallen off over the last several years. And again, this is another guy who is right-handed who gets paid quite a bit. So that was one contract that I thought was quite a bit. And then the other one was out with the Islanders with Alexander Romanov. I thought that one was also kind of just out of left field a little bit and all of that. And it was for 6 years, and I think he got 6.25 million per year. And again, that I can't really argue anything about, well, he sucks and he's this terrible player. But from what I'm seeing from the people that I trust who follow the New York Islanders and stuff like that, they thought it was a pretty high contract for the price and also for the term. So, do you have anything to say about either one of those contracts, or what you think on either one of those?
I think those 2 are probably, I mean, those are long-term deals. Both of those players are 25 years old. That cap hit with how the cap is supposed to rise, that's probably not that bad. Maybe it looks bad this season. Maybe after 2 seasons, it looks really good, though.
I guess, but still, I was very, 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 very surprised to see what they did. Let's talk about. Let's see. What's a team you were surprised about with some of their signings? Because there's a couple that we could go with.
Man, you're putting me on the spot.
A little bit, yeah.
I don't know who to go with.
Okay. Why don't we do the most recent one, actually? The Brent Burns just signed with Colorado for a year. And there was not a lot of talk about Brent Burns coming to Dallas. But there were some people that were wondering whether he would be a good fit and everything like that. The Stars just they can't afford anything at this point. They have to get rid of people in order to get a roster that will be cap compliant by game 1 of the regular season. And I mean, are you surprised about Brent Burns going to Colorado?
Nah. I mean, it's kind of just picking where he wants to try to get another cup, and I mean that's a pretty good choice, honestly.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, Colorado is kind of in the same the same boat as Dallas, and that there's a very high expectation for their team. Yeah, a very high expectation. There is one team that I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, and that was the New York Islanders. And I know we just talked about Romanov and stuff like that, but I mean they signed a couple of players that I was a little bit surprised about. I mean they brought David Riddick in to kind of, I guess, be the backup there, or maybe the number 3. They signed Tony DeAngelo. Jonathan Drouin signs a 2-year contract there. You also see one of the sought after outside of the NHL free agents, and Shabanov, I think I'm saying that right, out of the KHL. He also signs there with the Islanders. I mean, what's the direction of the Islanders? Are they trying to immediately just turn around and get right back in the playoffs after they drafted Matthew Schaefer?
That's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like to me too.
And when you win the draft lottery like that, and your team isn't terrible, which they're not terrible, they really weren't. It's not a bad decision. I mean, might as well try to go for it, right? And if all of it clicks together, you look like a genius.
And that's the other thing with like all of these teams. Like when I'm thinking about this, James, there's not a lot of teams in the NHL that are trying to suck, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Right? The Gavin McKenna sweepstakes are going on next year. Gavin McKenna is the projected number 1 pick, and I don't think he's quite up there in terms of Connor Bedard level, hype, but he's very close. He's close. So, and the only team that I look at in the NHL that I can think of off the top of my head that is trying to get worse is the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's about it.
And that's like the only team that should be trying to get worse.
Right. And of course, that's exactly how it works, is that's the only team that gets any worse. But I mean, Calgary could still make the playoffs this year. San Jose is not looking to be worse. They've signed a couple of players on their own. They've got a couple of new shiny toys, young guys who are starting to make their way in the league. Minnesota is finally off of the Parise and the Suter buyouts from years ago. Now, I mean, St. Louis seems to have taken a step in the right direction as well with some of their signings and showing that they're trying to get in there. I mean, Utah was very busy. Like, it doesn't seem like there's many teams that are purposely trying to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, and then we're going to get to the regular season, and we're going to find out some teams are hot garbage.
Well, speaking of hot garbage, like, what about the Nashville Predators? Like, they were not. They didn't do anything. Like, so
are you supposed to? Like, you have a bunch of players that should be good, and they just didn't work. They never got out of the starting blocks the entire season.
So was that like a coaching thing, or was it they too many good players all at once and trying to change everything all at once? Or
maybe just a bad group of them, like, as in they didn't click together as easy as most players do. Sometimes that happens, and they have a lot of cap space right now too, which is kind of interesting. They have 10 million in cap space right now, so maybe you try to find another second liner forward that you can mix up those players more too. I mean, just like, what are you supposed to do with a team like that, though? You have 3 of these players signed for the next 3 years, and the only one that was like really good was Philip Forsberg, and that's because he's always good.
Well, I mean, like when you look at their roster, they don't have a ton of young guys who are coming up into the league who are taking the league by storm, right? Like the only one that I'm looking at the roster with, James, that I really liked was Luca Evangelista. Like I've noticed him a lot in games against Dallas, and he's got a lot of that same kind of giddy up and go that I see from like Wyatt Johnston, if that makes any sense, to kind of make a correlation there. But like when you look at their players, they got Philip Forsberg, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Ryan O'Reilly. Like that seems like they should be good. But then when you look at the play, all of those guys are 30 and above. So like, I mean, was it just an oversight by Barry Trotz, the GM, and he's just like, oh, we're really close to the playoffs. I believe in these guys. I'm gonna spend some money on some older guys and expect that they're gonna get worse. And then so and then like here's another thing is like Darren Smith is right. Like Tommy Novak was he was in Nashville and they traded him away to Florida. And then in the same way, I mean, they just traded who did they recently? They just helped out Vegas, and they kind of helped Vegas get Mitch Marner. Like they traded Jeremy Lazon and Colton Sissons to Vegas, and they kept Nicholas Hague. So like I just they helped him out, and I don't even think that's a great trade to be completely honest. And then they signed Nicholas Hague to a $5.5 million cap hit. That seems really high to me. So maybe this is a team under the radar that is trying to suck. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I think the other thing is that their players really they should be good, and they all moved to different teams, and they all came to Nashville, and then they all were bad. It wasn't just like one of them was bad and the others did okay. No, they were bad the beginning of the season. The first half of the regular season, none of them were doing anything. And that's just, I mean, if you have any team where 2 or 3 of your best players are giving you nothing, I mean, that's I feel like that's the season that it looks like. And maybe this is just okay, these players are better than this. I know they're better than this. Let's maybe it's I hope they're better than this rather than I know, but because you're stuck with them regardless. But I think I don't think it's a terrible idea to try and run it back and try to see some of these players who have had 30 goal seasons and see if they can at least get a sniff of that back, you know?
I just don't see any improvement there. Like and again, they didn't. They got a lot of Stars fans were upset that they got Nicholas Perbix from Tampa Bay. He went to the free agent market and they signed him there. But other than that, that was the only signing they made. And it was like for what, 2 years at 2.45 or something like that. It was 2.45. So, but and okay, one other team, James, that I want to talk about that I think the Stars need to be careful of is the recently renamed Utah Mammoth, who are no longer the Utah Hockey Club. We have not talked about that on this podcast yet. Utah has become the Mammoth, and I really like what they're doing with their team. I really do. They just recently went out and made a trade for JJ Peterka from the Sabres. So the exits out of Buffalo of good players leaving Buffalo continues with this. And he's now their highest paid player on the roster at $7.7 million, which is crazy because Clayton Keller is a point per game player or more, almost 100 points per season, and he makes 7.15. That is a fantastic contract. And like JJ Peterka is 23, Clayton Keller is 26, Dylan Gunther is 22, had a really good season. And they've still got some other players who are on the younger side too. They've still got Logan Cooley. They've still got Barrett Hayton. And I mean, and that's just on their forward group. Like and they've still got Sean Dursey, who is on the younger side. He's still 27. And then a lot of people forget that Mikhail Sergachev, who it seems like he is like a seasoned veteran because of all the playoff games that he played with Tampa. He's only 27. Like, this is secretly a very good team that could make some damage in the playoffs if they get there. I mean, there's a large chance that I think this team could, kind of upset some people in the Central Division, which is why I think the Stars need to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely the most fun team. This is going to be the most fun team to watch. And I think that's been the case over the past 2 or 3 years now. I mean, you've had all the storylines with the owner not getting a building for them, and then they were playing in a college stadium, and then they're moving to Utah, and now this season they finally get a name for their team. Like there's always something going on with this team. And outside of all of that, the GM has done a great job with getting great picks and just continuing to have that tube of young new players coming in constantly. And the team looks really solid now. I mean, if you just have it like one or two of the younger players take a step, this is definitely a playoff team.
Speaking of teams that might make the playoffs this year, what about Anaheim?
No,
like you still don't
I know what you're
them...
saying, but no, I don't think they're there yet. I think they are just a step behind what Utah is, honestly.
Okay, that's fair.
And to be a little fair towards them as well, they've also been plagued by injuries for 2 seasons straight now. But I just think Utah is a little closer than Anaheim is.
The only way I kind of disagree with you a little bit is because of the fact that I love what Pat Verbeek did here, by the way. Pat Verbeek, for those of you that don't know, is a former Dallas Star who won the Cup in 1999 with Dallas. He is the GM of the Anaheim Ducks. But they've got a lot of veteran presence now and a lot of really good young players as well, too. And they've got a ridiculous amount of cap space still. They've got almost $30 million in cap space. Now, I know they're saving that a lot because they're getting ready to sign some of their younger players that will need a really good hefty raise over the next couple of years. But like, you've got young guys like Cutter Gauthier, Leo Carlson, Mason McTavish. You've also got Troy Terry, who is starting to go into the prime of his career. And then you've got the guys that they just signed recently or have been there for a little bit in some of the veterans. Like you've got Frank Vetrano, who has been very good for them. You've got Mikhail Granlund, who they just signed, peace to Mikhail Granlund and everything. I hate that he went. He got $7 million, but who cares? They've got $30 million in cap space. And that's at the time. They've already signed Mikhail Granlund. It's really 28, but same difference, right? And they've got Granlund, they got Kreider, they got Alex Killorn, who is secretly like a guy who's been there, done that. He's won cups. And then you've also got the guys on their back end in the D core. They've got young guys with Jackson Lacombe, who was really good, Menchikov, Zellweger, and Hellison was also pretty good there in like a depth role. But then you've got the guys who have been there, done that, and Jacob Trouba, Radko Gudas, and to a certain extent, Oliver Shillington. But and then you could also look at their goaltending, and they've all of a sudden got a whole lot of depth there. They trade out John Gibson. John Gibson goes to Detroit to try and be the pseudo number one there, I guess. It seems like that. And then they've got Peter Mrazek as the backup, Ville Husso as, I guess, the number 3 there. I don't know. And then I would argue Lucas Dostal is one of the better goaltenders in the NHL right now. And maybe that's just statistically not fair because he had a barrage of shots the last couple of years and he's looked really good. But the thing is that he's making a name for himself across the league. So, like, I love what Anaheim is doing. And that's another team that I'm not saying that they're going to come in and be, first in the Western in the Pacific Division or anything like that. But could they make the playoffs next year? I think that is not outside the realm of possibility.
I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility for a lot of teams, honestly. I just think that Utah is a lot more likely than Anaheim is.
Okay, so out of the Central Division, then who falls out?
We can't do these predictions yet, Ryan. We just started the off season.
I was trying to back you into a corner and you didn't. It didn't work. Dig it. That's okay. Okay. We've already gone a little over than what I intended, so it's about time for us to wrap up. But anything we need to talk about before we kind of wrap it up here tonight, James?
Nope. I think I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank all of you who are following along with us live this evening. Please make sure you click like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and hit that notification bell so that every time a episode goes live, you don't miss it. And if you're on the audio side, please leave us a 5-star review. We'd appreciate that. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. We keep steadily increasing like every single episode that we release. So we appreciate you guys doing that. Please, please, please do that. Follow us on social media at Starcastic. We have our media kit. We're looking for sponsors. If you or someone you know would like to have their business be sponsored on our podcast, we'd love to talk to you. Link is in the description below. And as always, if you'd like to join the Who Cares Club for $5 a month, that basically helps us keep the lights on here at Starcastic Remarks, we would appreciate it there as well. So anyways, alongside James, my name is Ryan. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. Hope you guys have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening. Whenever you guys are listening, we'll be back with you guys again on Tuesday with the brand new Stars fan stories. And then, as always, we'll be live with you guys Wednesday nights at 9:15 with all three of us. Thank you guys so much. Have a good night.